Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Blair and Barker. I'm Blake Murphy, sitting in for Jeff Blair today, alongside Kevin Barker. Barker, how we doing, man?
Hey,
big long weekend ahead.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's the weather looks okay. It's not raining just yet, so yeah, hopefully it's and I know my wife's put me to work. As soon as I'm done here, I got to go plant flowers. So, woohoo!
So you're actually hoping for like a little bit of rain at some point. You want to get those in there. You want to be nice and dry, and then
there you go.
Then it can open up. All right,
do it. Get it out of the way. Let it rain, grow. Wife's happy. I'm happy.
There we go. We've also obviously the Blue Jays are back home, so we don't have to worry about a rain out. 5 off days in 15 days. You feeling like there hasn't been enough baseball a little bit the last couple of weeks, eh?
Well, some would say because of the way the offense looks, that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. No, all joking aside, I think if you're a player, you sort of take those days and you walk away from it, have a little mental break, and sort of recharge when it comes to that, and maybe figure some things out. Just to give yourself a chance. I think that's all everybody's asking is walk up there, give yourself a chance, and let the cards fall where they may.
And a real big stretch of games ahead here for the Blue Jays. Tonight starts 13 in 13 days and a 16-game stretch where the Rays are back above 500 now, but 2 days ago this looked like 16 straight against sub-500 teams. They kind of got to get something going here.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, what is it? It's the 6 against the White Sox, 4 against the Tigers, and 3 against the Rays. So you take 2 out of the 3 against the Rays. You take 8 out of 10 against those other 2 teams. Hey, all of a sudden now you're above 500, and maybe the conversation tomorrow with the GM might go a little differently.
Yeah, so a couple housekeeping items. First, tonight's game is a Friday Night Baseball on Apple TV Plus exclusive, so we won't have the broadcast on Sportsnet television. We'll have it on the radio side, Ben Schulman and Chris LaRue.
Oh, that's good.
I mentioned this on Jays Talk Plus earlier. People didn't know this. On Apple TV Plus, you could switch the audio over and listen to our guys on the radio while you watch the Apple TV
That's the way to tell the people.
Broadcast as well. Go to apple.co/MLB gift for instructions on how to get a free trial to watch that game tonight.
Sounds complicated.
It's all right. It's all right. I figured it out 2 weeks ago, a couple beers in, so we'll be all right. We'll manage. The other housekeeping item is Ross Atkins is going to speak tomorrow. Pre-game, he'll talk to the media. He'll do his little dugout thing. What are you expecting to hear? What do you want to hear at a general manager Ross Atkins tomorrow?
Yeah, I think there's a little of that we care. I mean, you got to be a good salesman here. I think it ain't like you can come on there and go, hey, the offense is not getting it done. Well, thanks. Like we sort of already know that. It's just the fact that what are you going to do about it? Like I think people are now sort of starting to want to hear. They haven't heard from Ross in a while, and I think he's got to come out with a little bit of a bang here and say sort of, we got to fix this where our pitching is good enough, our defense is good enough. The messaging between the coaching staff and our players is good enough. It's just the results, one side of the ball is just not good enough. So we're going to do our part as an organization, as a front office to try and get this taken care of. And we promise that the players will continue to work hard and do everything they can do to have the best product on the field they could possibly have. So, I think that's the point that I think people want to hear. Other than that, what else could he possibly say?
I mean, my fear would be, I guess it's going to sound like I think he did one in August, and we haven't heard from him since opening day, so he hasn't done this yet this year. But we heard late last year when the offense was struggling, they were dead last with hitting with runners in scoring position. Mm-hmm. He did the batted ball metrics. We believe that all of that will even out.
You ain't buying?
Even me as a numbers guy, like we're like a year and a quarter into it now. Like I don't know, and all those numbers have gone the wrong direction too. Even if you believe in them,
you can't even sell it, huh?
Yeah, I don't want to have to sit here Monday coming in on a holiday and sell that.
Yeah, so. I don't think people want to hear we believe in the core. Yeah, we're past that. Like we understand who the core is. It's 2 people. It's the guy at first, and the guy at short. Everybody knows that. You don't have to come out and say it. It's how do you fix it? Like that's the point here, right? I've said this, and I'll continue to say it. They're not a last-place team. Their pitching's too good. Yeah. Their defense is too good. Their baseball IQ is too good. Offensively, they're not. How do you fix it? That's the thing I think the people that are invested in the Blue Jays every single day, like me, you, and a plethora of other people, want to hear, how do you fix it? Like enough of the we believe and if they keep doing this, our metrics tell us this. Yeah, we can see it, that it's not working out. How do you fix it and make it better? And how do you, quite frankly, get some people in here and hit some homers? Like, they don't do that a ton. And if you notice, most of the really, really good teams do a bunch of that. Because pitching, as you well know, is really, really good. So stringing together 4 or 5 hits in a row against a really good pitcher is really, really hard. You got to have some really good hitters with some great game plans. So That I think is the two things I'd like to hear.
Yeah, you go back to Monday's game, for example, the stringing hits together. They won that game, but it felt like a miracle when Vogelbach came up with that bloop single to score a run. And you had 3 or 4 hits in that inning. It felt so rare. Being bottom 5 in home runs and top 5 in home runs allowed, that's a tough way to go. If you have comments, by the way, on what you'd like to hear from Ross Atkins or just generally, as always on Friday.
Not fire himself. He's not going to do that. He's not going to say that. Okay? He's not.
Could you imagine?
Oh, man. No, I couldn't imagine that.
All right. Backleg line is open for your questions and comments on the Jays and Major League Baseball. 416-413-3959. It is Friday. You want to get we got Ryan Spilborghs is coming on with us in a little bit. He's on the Apple TV broadcast tonight. Brian Anderson, your pal from the Rays TV analyst at Bally Sports Sun, will join us. We got John Schneider at 3 p.m. as you guys always do on Fridays. Jesse Rogers of ESPN will join us as well.
Load management.
Yeah.
Wow.
Managing our load. You get us 4 big guests, so we don't have to do as much ourselves.
You know, how do you figure out how to play less and make more money? I mean, it's the American dream.
Yeah.
It really is. How do you do it? I mean, it is amazing that they actually have to have that conversation. I mean, if you're a player, I think you want to raise your hand to an organization and say, hey, why do you think I work so hard in the offseason? Why do you think I spend all this money on my body? Most of them do.
Yeah. And
trying to play as much as I can possibly play. I mean, it's a 6-month season for most teams or most players. So that part of it I really don't understand, but it'd be an interesting conversation to hear what he's got to say.
It's interesting to read that Jesse Rogers piece, and that's up at ESPN, by the way. And yeah, you look at a team like the Braves, who've been one of the best teams in baseball over the last couple of years, good playoff runs, and they play 8 of those 9 guys every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a habit, right? It's just sort of you show up, you know what you're doing, you know where you're basically at in the lineup every single day, you know you're going to be playing your position. Yeah, look, it's almost like you're trying to invent ways. Just to give a player an excuse. You know, I was reading his article, and it was, you know, he's making the example that he'd heard from certain GMs and certain presidents of teams that said it like they take into account like how many times the dude ran on a 3-2 pitch. It's like, really? It's a lot. It's a lot to understand.
It's a lot. We'll talk about it more with Jesse. And I've gone through this on the basketball side as well, where when the Raptors won the championship, load management was the biggest part of the conversation. Keep Kawhi Leonard healthy for the playoffs. Story. And it worked out. Yeah. And Kawhi Leonard hasn't been healthy through the playoffs since. But that's an 82-game schedule where you're playing 40 minutes a night versus an everyday one where there's probably something to having your body ready to be in there every single day. You'd know much better than I would.
Look, I took pride in playing every single day, and then I went to Winter Bowl and played another 80-some games. So my body just got used to playing. I mean, I played first, so I got to stand around a lot. They stand around a lot. It's, you know, it's not like they're going out there running all over the place for 4 hours straight. It's not soccer. So, look, again, stop making excuses for athletes. I pay you to play. I want to write, if you're healthy, I'm going to write your name right there in the lineup every single day until you're hurt. How about that? It's that simple, but it just doesn't seem like it's that simple anytime.
Yeah. The other thing, the other thing on the basketball side, and sorry to make that comparison, but this is where it came from first, right? The basketball and the soccer side is in basketball. It's all about, okay, we'll keep a guy ready for the playoffs, but 16 out of 30 teams make the playoffs after an 82 games. You don't have to be at your best every day to make the playoffs in basketball. You do in baseball. It's a long season, and the difference between 87 wins and 89 wins could be your ticket in, your ticket home.
Right now, would you like to see somebody other than Bo and Vladdy playing?
Nope.
Because the Jays don't really have anybody else. But if there's load management, I mean, those two dudes play all the time. It's look, what I just don't know is there an equation that will tell you? I'm sure there is. I mean, there's an equation for everything else. I'm sure that's how they go about it. It's confusing. It's especially coming from a big guy who never missed a game in 16 years because of injury. Again, I know I played first, but I still played hard. I played on bad fields. Like, you got to just sort of figure out mentally and physically how to keep yourself on the field. For me, that's more up to the player than it is the organization. That's why the organization pays you all that money.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about Jesse's reporting on this when we talk to him around 3:30. Again, that piece is up at ESPN. You could check it out. Let's do a couple calls before we bring in Ryan Spilborghs from the Apple TV Plus broadcast. I think we got Josh from Kelowna, BC, up first with one for you, Barker.
The Jays obviously are scuffling. They know their offense is bad. It's not just been bad for this year. They know it wasn't great last year either. So, Barker, if you were the Justin Turner in the clubhouse, the old guy that's been around for a long time and, had a good career to back it up, what would you say to the players, if anything, to try to get things going? Is there anything you could do as a player? I'm just curious how it works in a clubhouse. How do you get these guys going?
Yeah, it's a great question. The first thing you'd want to do is not be 2 for his last 28. I mean, I understand he's not been healthy and he's been sick, and you could hang your hat on that. But look, clubhouses in baseball don't work that way. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and it's just no matter how long you've been around, the actual other player has to come up to you. It's not the other way around. Like Justin Turner's not going to go around to each locker and go, "Hey, how may I help you today?" Like, can I help you to figure out something? Like, it's just not going to work that way. The easiest way is to lead by example. Go out between the lines and rake and back leg city everything you see. Like, that's the easiest thing to do, and how to sort of contribute. And, if you're doing it, other players will try and do the same thing you're doing. And I think that sort of is, it's not so much of what you say, it's what you do. And I think that's, for me, where the Blue Jays and Justin Turner are at. And again, everybody wants to think that an older guy stands up in the middle of a locker room and yells and screams at everybody, and that just so happens works. Well, maybe I don't like a breaking ball. Maybe that's all I'm getting. Maybe I don't like a fastball in. That's why I've moved off the plate a little bit. Like, it's to each his own. It's just because you're yelling at me and telling me I need to do this. Well, thanks, Captain Obvious. Like, it's not like they don't know that they're struggling, right? So, I mean, it's a fair question. It's why you line yourself up with some experienced guys that younger guys can walk up and ask, how did you get out of it? But for me, it all starts with leading by example. Between the lines, go out there and do your thing, and everybody will want to follow.
More valuable coaching from Justin Turner when he's standing on first base than saying something to a guy walking back to the dugout.
I like when he's jumping in the air, running around third to the third base coach after he's hit a homer. It's those kind of things. But it's a solid point. It's just that we like to say that, it's just an easy fix by yelling at everybody in a clubhouse. I guess this is not hockey. I've never been in a hockey clubhouse, but it just sounds like that's sort of what everybody's leaning on, right? It seems to work in a clubhouse like that. In baseball, it doesn't, because not everybody's the same. Like, not everybody in the lineup can go up and sit fastball. A lot of them don't like the fastball. So, it's what I do is not what you're going to do. What you do is not what he's going to do. It's like everybody's individually sort of trying to figure out their own selves. And for Justin Turner to walk around and do those kind of things, it's just not going to work.
You mentioned he's 1 for his last 24. I think you said 2 for his last 28. You seeing anything troubling there, or just a quick blip here?
Yeah, I would think maybe it's trying too hard. Okay. He sort of everybody rolls their eyes at that because they're making tons of money, and how dare you try? Like, you've been around long enough to not try. Yeah, sometimes when you're around things that's just not working, and you try too hard, you sort of fall into that. It ain't working for you either. Now, I know the league's made a little bit of an adjustment with the elevated fastball and crowding him with the elevated fastball. And, he's 39. Like, he's had a career year at 38. To think that he's going to do that again a year older, that's a lot to ask. Like, it really is. That's why me and Jeff are yelling and screaming about they need 2 or 3 Turners. Not just one Turner. They need 2 or 3 Turners. Like, if a Turner that's 39 is having a little hiccup, then the other Turner can step up and sort of help carry the team for a little while. And it's unfair for us to be asking a 39-year-old to carry the team for long periods of time. I really do think that's the case.
Yeah, and the left-handed Turner who's gotten more playing time because Turner was down with the flu lately, he's hitting $111. So
there you go.
There you go.
Hell dead.
We got another one here from Diane in Paris, Ontario. That's my neck of the woods. So let's see what Diane has to say.
And I just want to say, I am not in the camp of fire John Schneider.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually in the camp of I would love to see John Schneider manage this team under a different GM.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Atkins' ego is a little too big, and him and his analytics teams are the ones that need to go. Martinez was a great batting coach for 2 years, and then he wasn't as soon as Mattingly got near there. But I don't think John Schneider gets the opportunity to manage this team the way I think he would like to manage this team. And I'm okay with the lineups the last couple of days, although I'm going to agree with Blair. Move Springer. I hate that he comes up to bat more than anybody else. Thanks. Have a great day.
That's a great call. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with what anybody's saying about George Springer. What's the other option? Like, I don't disagree with any of that. I mean, I think it's when you're struggling, you play the best players, get those best players the most at bats. Who is the other person? Everybody yells and screams about David Schneider. When he had one good time or two good games to lead. Look, it sort of is what it is when it comes to this. It's the collection of 4 or 5 guys at the top of the order. If they ain't going to hit homers, they're going to have to get big hits, right? So I think that's kind of what it is. I'm in that same camp. I mean, I think that's a great call. What other manager would somehow figure out how to fix the lineup? I mean, the pitching's good. The defense is good. I mean, I think John is trying the best he can do about, putting runners in motion and putting pressure on a defense. And, I mean, ultimately, is it time for us to point the finger at the player and not the coach anymore? I mean, that's where I'm at. I've been in a bunch of locker rooms. It's real easy to blame and yell and scream at the coach. I've had some really bad coaches. It wasn't their fault that I stunk, because I should be old enough and been around long enough to go, you know what, man? What you're saying may work for somebody else. It just ain't working for me. I appreciate your advice. I appreciate you trying, but go away. I mean, I think they're at that point now. They're old enough that they can do that, right? Especially the guys that we're counting on to go where they want to go. That's a tremendous call, and I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and it's, the George Springer conversation. Yeah, you can move him for a little bit. They moved him for a month last year, and it worked out until it didn't. Whit Merrifield cooled off when they put him up there. Yeah. But George Springer's not going to start hitting better because he's hitting 6th. You're just going to move him to 6th, and then if he figures it out, he figures it out.
Well, they had a better option, right? And Whit Merrifield, he was raking for a while. John put him up there. It was a better option. It was a better spot. You'd rather have him up than George getting the extra bat. But who is that other person?
I think the most common answer is David Schneider right now. The on-base percentage is up there. 2 walks the other day. There's going to be some swing and miss stuff. There's no perfect option. What they need is for George Springer to hit like George Springer in that spot.
Praying.
And all right, so you mentioned the Jays have at least tried to get some stuff going on the base pass. I wonder how big a part of this series that'll be, because the Rays run more than just about anyone, and they don't do a very good job protecting the run. So maybe our next guest will get to call a couple stolen bases tonight. Ryan Spilborghs, Apple TV Plus broadcast analyst, Rockies broadcast analyst, co-host of Loud Outs on MLB Network Radio with CJ Nikowski. It is Friday Night Baseball on Apple TV Plus. Ryan, your second Jays game in like 2 weeks, man. You got to feel pretty familiar with these guys.
A lot more than that, because I came for Rockies too. So I've been in Toronto quite a bit in the last month, and I love it. I love Toronto. We're actually in the harbor, and I'm trying to get my coffee at Tim Hortons. So I'm all Toronto out right now.
Spilly, you ever been on a lineup that's struggling 1 through 9? And if you have, how did you figure it out? Or did you?
You know what? I think Kevin, it's like every lineup goes through, peaks and valleys. And when it stinks is when everybody stinks at the same time. Mm-hmm. I think in the case of Toronto, it was good to see Bo Bichette get 3 hits. It was good to see Vladdy, swing the bat a little bit better. But, when it's your whole lineup, you start to wonder, hey, how much of it is the lineup is having a struggle, or how much of it is really personnel? If you feel super confident that your entire lineup, hey man, we're good, we're not getting going, then there's a calm. There's a legit calm. You're we're gonna hit, relax. But if you're not quite sure, based on the back of your baseball card, if you actually can really come through it, then that's when panic sets in. And that's when I don't want to call finger pointing, because that's not what's going on. But you're like, damn, I do have to do a little bit more. So in the case of Toronto in this off season, you got to remember, your highest OPS player last year was Brandon Belt. He's not on the team. Yeah. You're using Kevin Biggio, who was awesome in the second half last year. This year he's not been great. So you have, I think I counted, it was 6 players in the roster with the OPS below 650. Ooh. That's terrible. That's not good. And so from those guys, you start digging in. You're like, okay, well, which of these guys is a 750 or league average OPS on base plus slugging? And so it's Bo Bichette, all right, and then you start to wonder, I don't think Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is an above-average OPS. I don't think Kevin Biggio over the course of the season is above-average OPS. So you start to question, well, what is the reality of this offense? Will they eventually pop out or play to a level And I can't answer that for you because I don't think the roster and the way it's constructed has enough players in there that believe in their overall skill set because they just haven't proven it.
They've also got a bunch of guys who, in addition to, the OPS or whatever, they're just not hitting home runs, right? Dalton Varshaw's the only guy on this team on pace for more than 15 home runs right now, and that's not going to cut it in the current environment regardless. Ryan, you were on with me 2 weeks ago on Jays Talk Plus, the other show, and we talked a little bit about Vlad, and Vlad was still kind of in the valley of going through it there. He was starting to come out a little bit, but you mentioned a stat to me on that show, which was how Vlad was performing against fastballs. That was something you had looked up, something that was of concern to you. Vlad's been a little hot since we last talked, or at least from a hitting for average perspective. The extra base stuff hasn't come. Are you liking what you've seen from him? Are you seeing steps in the right direction when it comes to Vlad?
I am seeing steps in the right direction. I mean, like tonight, we have a pretty cool breakdown of to give you an idea, especially when it comes to Vladdy, because here's a guy that I think should be like an 800, 850, 900 OPS, and he's still below it. But if you start digging in the last couple of years, hard hit rates, quality of contact, swing percentages, chase rates, he lines up with some of the best hitters in baseball. So his like underlying numbers on swing and, contact, he lines up with some of the best hitters. It's like Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, and you're like, okay, then where is this guy, right? Like, then where is the production? If you have all the skill set and tools to be one of the league's best hitters, well, where is that? Because that's the question that I've had consistently, especially since the last 2 years. So I think. I don't know what it is what's going on with Vladdy. I mean, he's a guy that like Kevin and I would probably just pour love into him, right? Mm-hmm. Like try to take pressure off of him, like let him just feel like he's one of the boys.
Yep.
But then, behind his back, we're like, damn, we really need this guy.
That's it. Hey, Spilly, I got Ross Atkins, the GM for the Blue Jays, is talking tomorrow, and when I knew you were coming on, I was trying to figure out a question to ask about that. And I think I want to ask it this way. If you were in the lineup for the Jays and you were one of the guys that was struggling offensively, and it had been a while since the GM has spoken to anybody. I think it was the first day of the season, the last time he spoke, that's a long time. And I think if you're in that lineup, you're thinking to yourself, man, it's awfully weird that he's talking tomorrow. Would you be paying attention to what he has to say tomorrow?
No, not at all.
No?
I mean, the only thing I think when you have these little, my culpas or, like clearing of the air, I think part of it is just, assurances that the manager's fine, the coaching staff's fine, that you're playing below expectations, that you're wanting to get going. I think you want some reality too, though, if you are going to read any of the quotes, right? Like when you're in the clubhouse, you want to see that, hey, we got their back. We know they're going through a rough stretch. We believe in them. Whatever. I mean, like none of the guys are going to be sitting around the TV screen watching it. And, I think what's really telling is you got 26 games in 26 days. This is going to be a monster stretch. There's no days off. Being below 500 stinks, but these little stretches, when you play this many games in a row, you often get two results. Either you just go even worse, or you finally get the team swinging the bat in the right way, and you go on these runs. So if you think Toronto's capable of a run, well, here it comes. It's about to come. If you think they're going to go sideways, well, then here's the sideways, and a month from now we're going to be talking about what I would assume to be some changes. So it's kind of that fork in the road, right?
Yeah.
And you're right there at it, but players are not going to listen to it. Probably coaches are going to listen to it a little bit more than the players.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, and look, if you said if it goes sideways, they're right. If it goes this weekend aside, because it's Tampa Bay and they've turned it around a little bit, but if it goes sideways against White Sox, Tigers, White Sox, Pirates, that thing's going to go sideways in a hurry. Ryan, look, when a team's not playing poorly, the quality of schedule doesn't matter all that much, right? Like you can't go in there feeling too confident you're going to beat pretty much anyone if you're playing bad baseball. But how do you when you're in a bad spot like this, 4 games under 500, they haven't won a series in over a month. How do you avoid the kind of trap of, well, we got the White Sox and the Tigers and the White Sox coming up kind of in the back of your head?
You play clean baseball. You play against the sport. I mean, ultimately, if Toronto's good enough, they play against themselves. They play the best version of baseball that they're capable of playing. I'll give you an example. The Rockies were the worst team in baseball, and I'm comfortable saying that. They were the worst team in the National League, and it wasn't even close. And what happened was they got some quality starts, and they just ripped off 7 in a row, including sweeping the San Diego Padres. So even a team like Colorado that does not have the same roster as Toronto, you just get a little bit of confidence. You get like 1 or 2 things that go your way. You can rip off some wins. It's just you got to be patient with it. That's the one thing that you'll hear from baseball players all the time. Is there's a sense of urgency, but you also have to have a sense of patience because it changes. It changes overnight.
Spilly, are the Rays back? They won, they took 3 out of 4 from the Red Sox. They won 9 of 13. Are they back?
Well, they're back in Toronto. I don't know if they're back. I think when it comes to Tampa, they're still just hanging by a thread. Very similar offensively. There's some players that are not performing. Rosarena's not performing. Yandi's not a top 3 MVP this year. They're just kind of going off of fumes, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like, if this team ended up being well below 500 this year, I'd tell you, yep, that sounds right. If this team goes on a run and they get healthy and some of their arms back, and they end up going on a run, I'd say, yep, that sounds about right. So Tampa has always I leave them alone.
Yeah.
I try not to pass judgment on them because they somehow, some way find a way to figure it out. And if they don't, then they don't. But I think the level of expectations between both teams, Toronto has way more pressure on this group than Tampa Bay does. And there's something free and easy about playing in a organization like Tampa Bay where, that outside pressure, that noise, you just don't hear it, you don't feel it. Toronto certainly feels like there's way more noise and way more pressure from the outside.
And Toronto doesn't have an entire starting rotation on the IL right now in Shane Baz, Shane McClanahan, Ryan Pepio, Drew Rasmussen, Jeffrey Springs, like a whole rotation on the IL, and Tampa still managed to be a game above 500 here. Ryan, you mentioned the Rockies went on that 7-game win streak. That got them all the way up to 15-28. Still think that's probably a team that's going to be looking to sell. I know you had some thoughts on Luis Arraez getting dealt early and getting dealt before the kind of late July crunch when everyone makes those moves. Could you see the Rockies being a team that puts guys on the table earlier rather than later?
It would be completely counter to what they've done in the past. I mean, I think Ryan McMahon would look fantastic in a Toronto Blue Jays uniform. It gives you your left-handed power third baseman with an OPS near 900, playing like an all-star, and you got multiple years of control. That deal makes a ton of sense. I'd also want to see it sooner rather than later. But I just don't know who has the appetite for it. Does Toronto have an appetite to trade probably like Ricky Tiedemann to grab that? Or, is Colorado willing to, trade a guy that's probably has some surplus value as far as his contract's concerned in the level of play, but to keep him on a team that's going to lose 100 doesn't make a ton of sense. So I would like to see Colorado make some more moves, but they haven't shown certainly in the last 7 years that they're capable of doing it. So we'll see. That deal on paper would make a ton of sense, and because I love Ryan McMahon, I think he would look great in a Blue Jays uniform.
You nailed that.
And I'm sure the Jays won't be the only team calling on him. So.
Nope.
Ryan Spilborghs, Apple TV Plus, Friday Night Baseball tonight. Welcome back to Toronto. Have a great time tonight. See you down at the park.
Thanks, buddy.
See you guys.
See ya.
Ryan Spilborghs. Again, it's Friday Night Baseball on Apple TV+. It's the only way you can watch the game tonight. You can Google or Apple support how to get that installed and how to get it free for a couple months there. We still have the game on the Sportsnet radio network, and you can toggle over to listen to Ben Schulman and Chris LaRue. If I don't know, I want to listen to Ryan Spilborghs. He just came on with us, gave us good stuff.
Yeah.
But if you want to listen to our broadcast, that's there as well. You like Ryan McMahon, Kevin?
Absolutely. I mean, I think he would fit well. But while Spilly was talking there, what does the Blue Jays have to give up?
It's a bottom 6 or bottom 7 farm system, right?
Yeah. Like I don't know how they'd get him because it's going to take some like more than 2. I mean, do they have more than 2 guys to give up?
Unless you're going low levels of the minors, you give them a couple lottery ticket style guys. Like the Oakland A's always prefer quantity over quality in their prospects they get back. But at the high end, you got 2 guys in the top 100 and nobody particularly close after that.
Do they like Martinez? Who knows? Like it's, to each his own kind of thing. Some guys like, some organizations like him, some don't. I mean, he would look perfect hitting second or third for the Jays, and you could sprinkle in the righties, and he can drive in runs, and he just change up how guys throw to both sides of the plate. But I just get back. How would you get him? Like, that's the question. It got me.
It's already thin. It's and the injuries have made it thinner. So we'll see how that goes. Let's take a break. Let's talk to your pal Brian Anderson. Let's see. Brian Anderson, terrific Rays analyst, also unfortunately a Leafs fan. So he's probably still recovering. He's probably going to ask us, hey, who's the new coach? What's going on? Is that announcement coming? We'll get a little bit more inside the Rays. It's Tyler Alexander on the hill for the Rays tonight against Chris Bassitt, 7:07 down at Rogers Center. We'll talk to Brian Anderson on the other side. Blair and Barker continues on the Sportsnet Radio Network and Sportsnet 360. Welcome back to Blair and Barker. Blake Murphy sitting in for Jeff Blair. Kevin Barker alongside me. Friday, 7:07 start down at the Rogers Center. Chris Bassitt against Tyler Alexander. We're going to talk to Brian Anderson, Rays TV analyst, momentarily here. What do you got on Tyler? Jeez. What do you got on Tyler Alexander for us?
It's
man?
Friday.
Yeah.
Look. He's left-handed. I think that's you. I think sometimes if you watch the lineup for the Blue Jays, especially the right-handed hitters that matter in the middle of the order, they overthink it. Like sometimes you just got to know this is very hard to do in 2024. I really do think if you chase most lefties around the strike zone, it's going to be a long day for you. You got to split that thing in half, give him half the plate until you get to 2 strikes, right? Whichever side you like more, pick that side. It doesn't really matter what he does well. Why would you look for the guy's best pitch? That makes no sense. Like nobody else can hit it. Why would I look for it? So I'm looking location, and I'm going to simplify that thing and look for a really small window. And if it's not in that window until I get to 2 strikes, I'm going to let it go. Maybe it's that. Maybe that's why they're not hitting homers. It's as simple as that. I'm hunting a window until I get to 2 strikes and see where it ends up at the end of the day. So yeah, I think it's that simple. He's got a good cutter. He's got a decent fastball. Don't throw hard.
Yeah, I mean, that's where it's at. If he gets a 90 on the gun, he's pumping his fist, right?
It screams overthinking it.
Yeah.
I mean, just out in front, rolling over, looking, breaking. I know it's educating, guessing time of baseball, but I think you simplify it, look window.
Yeah, Alexander off to a bit of a rough start this season. Was expected to be kind of like Sean Armstrong, like another long multi-inning guy, maybe an opener for them, but all the injuries have racked up.
Yep.
They let him go 7 last time out, even though he gave up 6 runs, 3 home runs in that one. So they'll give him some leash. And this is a guy who's given up, I think, 9 homers on the year. Maybe,
Don't say it.
I know. They're third. They've allowed the 2nd most home runs in baseball. Jays are 3rd.
Yeah, Jays don't hit any.
Yeah.
Like...
No confidence at all. I can't even sink the hook in a little bit.
I want to.
Yeah.
Just what would tell you that anything that they've been doing up until this point would bode that they're going to have a good day against the lefty. They should hit homers all the
time. The only guy hitting home runs on their team is a lefty also. So Dalvarcho's the only guy that's got more than 4. So could be a tough one there. Chris Bassitt on the other side of this one. The Rays have done decently against right-handed pitching. They're pretty split even. A couple of their lefties are off to not slower starts, but Josh Lowe wasn't in there for a little bit. Jonathan Aranda wasn't in there for a little bit. What did you make? I didn't get to ask you this. I'm sure you and Jeff talked about it, but going with Bassitt here and Kikuchi on Wednesday instead of flipping them around. Do you like that one?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because the Rays, some of their lefty bats are not in there, and they can't platoon the way they can against the righties like they used to, right? And just it bodes well to get Bassitt against more righties than lefties. And you say he is, can eliminate the lefties that the Orioles had. And flip those guys around who were switch hitting. So, yeah, it made total sense. Like that again, the organization, John Schneider, Pete Walker, they did exactly what they were supposed to do to give the lineup a chance to have the big inning. It just didn't happen. And now the only concern is the 8 days between starts. Like, that's a long time. I know he's had, some run and experience doing it, and he's an older guy and he's been around. But you would just think the more you do it consistently, the better off you are at it. That's a lot between starts. So we'll ask John when he comes on what the biggest worry is and what he'll be looking for. But I think if you got anything, because he is a touch and feel guy, right? You want the late movement on the two-seamer. You want the sometimes occasional cutter against the lefties. You want to have those where you want them in quadrants that you want them in to make the other stuff unpredictable. It's the other stuff. Can it be unpredictable with feel on 8 days of rest? That's a lot, right? So that'll be, I think, the one thing you'd be looking for. But we'll ask John. Yeah. He'll know more than we know about that.
Yeah, last time out, Bassitt threw all 8 of those pitches 3 or more times. He was using everything time out. So
kitchen sink.
That'll be fun. We'll talk to John Schneider at 3 o'clock. We're waiting on BA. Brian Anderson's still here. So let's take one of the calls from the back leg line. Again, it's 416-413-3959. If you want to drop a question or a comment there. We've got one from Jim in Tilsonburg for you, Barker.
Jim.
A couple of weeks back, Kevin, you asked what was wrong with the Blue Jays.
Yep.
I believe what's wrong with the Blue Jays is that the team is constructed basically from middle infielders, thinking that they could use one or two of those middle infielders in the outfield and so forth. These are guys who have come up through the system as infielders, middle infielders, and so forth. What this team really needs is at least 3 big, well-known outfielders.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to take that. I think they were relying on a couple of guys to carry their team, and they could fill in the blanks with what Jim was talking about, right? I think that was sort of what they were banking on. Why they didn't try, or maybe they did try, and the guys they were trying for just didn't want to come here. I mean, I think sometimes we've got to remember that too. Mm-hmm. It's a choice. You got to have 2 to tango. And maybe that was a little bit of it too. And some of it might have been, you put all your eggs in one basket with Ohtani stuff, and then it doesn't work out, and how late it didn't work out. And maybe you just didn't have a pivot move or moves to go to. So, yeah, I don't know about the outfielder thing. I think their defense is really good. I think, I would take a couple of DHs. I'm okay with that, right? It's guys that can thump, guys that can change the game, hitting a 2- and 3-run homer is what they don't have. And until they really get those, can we take the offense serious? That's the thing you got to ask yourself is, it's a big enough sample size. Even Spilly coming on here saying maybe the talent's just not good enough. I mean, I think the sample size is probably big enough. I think we can start having that conversation, no?
Yeah, it goes back well beyond just this year, right? Yeah. It's not a 40-game sample here.
No, I think so. I think we can sort of, not always blame the coaching staff or not always blame the khakis or, giving the wrong information or giving too much information. I think sometimes it's just maybe that dude that you're asking to do something can't do it. Maybe that's it.
Let's see if Brian Anderson thinks some of the Rays who have been off to similar starts can do the same. He's the Rays in-game TV analyst for Bally Sports Sun, Brian Anderson. He joins us now. Brian, good afternoon, man. Thanks for doing this. How we doing?
Absolutely, fellas. Doing great. It was nice to get to Toronto. The Rays, we just came from Boston, and you have a 4-game series, and that's as long as a series that you're going to see in Major League Baseball. But when you have a 4-game series and they're all night games, you feel like you moved to that city. So it felt like we were in Boston for about a month. So thankfully, we're up here in Toronto in a nice little tidy 3-game series.
Brian, what are the Rays?
What's that?
What are the Rays? Like, if you were going to give a definition of what the 2024 Rays are, what are they?
Oh, wow. I would probably at this point go with inconsistent. The one thing that you can bank on with this team typically is the consistency of it and their performance. But it's been kind of up and down. The Rays went into the season with the idea that one of the main strengths of their team, one of the pillars, was going to be their bullpen. And Kyle Schneider, the pitching coach, said, this is the deepest and most accomplished bullpen that I have had in my time here. And you agree. You look at these guys' resumes on paper, and you're like, wow, what a group. And they got off to a horrible start, absolutely horrible through
most of April. Now, they've turned it around in the last few weeks, and they have gotten back to being very, very dominant. I think collective ERA about 1.8 over the last 3.5 weeks or so. So they have turned it around, but it was just a very inconsistent start. Same thing with the offense. There were some guys, the new guys, Caballero playing very well, Richie Palacios playing very well, and then you had Yandy Diaz was not hitting the ball like he normally does. Randy Arozarena not hitting the ball like he does. Now Yandy's got it going here recently, and Randy's showing some signs of maybe being able to dig out of a little hole that he's put himself in. But overall, it's just been inconsistent, which is why they are, like the old Bill Parcells, you are what your record says. They're right now a 500 team, win one, lose one, up and down.
BA, I was watching the game last night, and I actually saw the Rays make a mistake with mound visits. Yeah. The Rays bench don't have a person over there counting mound visits. What's going on? What's happened?
Well, here's what's really interesting. So I didn't understand that the rule is such that you've got 4 mound visits. If you use all of them before the 9th inning, then you're afforded 1 extra in the 9th. If you don't use all 4 of them, then you are not afforded an extra one. And just last week on the homestand, and I actually had a field day with it because I was not really sure of the rule. I knew that the Rays were out of mound visits, and I know in the 9th inning they made a visit. And I thought, well, what good is having mound visits limits if you get as many as you want? I mean, what are we doing here? And so that had happened with the Rays on the homestand. And then, of course, yesterday, the 4th mound visit was the catcher, Ben Rordvet, going out to talk to the pitcher when I think Rafael Devers was coming up. So that constituted a mound visit, and it was their last one, and it was used in the 9th inning. And then here comes Kyle Schneider because it was a big part of the game. And once he crossed that line, he was told he couldn't go. I'm not even sure that the umpires knew. I think that they were just going to send him back and be done with it. And then Alex Cora came out and made a big stink about it.
Mad.
He's got to leave. He's got to leave. And he pestered them enough that they ended up calling New York and got word that, Jason Adam has to come out of that game.
Never thought I'd see the Rays mess up. I got to be honest with you. Just not the Rays way, BA.
Yeah, not something like that. Hey, listen, Kyle Schneider came to the – I sit in the very last seat of the airplane. And that's where, Dwayne and I are back in that area, and other members of the media, the radio guys. And Kyle came back all the way to the back of the plane to apologize to us. He goes, guys, I'm sorry, I messed up. I'm like, dude, nobody cares. I mean, the game got won, and Erasmo Rivera. I said, listen, you got Erasmo a save, so good for you. But he was having some fun with it after the fact because they don't do that very often.
Nope.
Now, 5th career save for Erasmo Ramirez too. It's not like he's got a bunch of them, so I'm sure he appreciated the flub there. Look, in that bullpen, they do have Pete Fairbanks back now a little bit. Jason Adam and Garrett Clevenger have been good in the back end. Is that something like the starting pitching is going to go based on the health and when guys like Boz and Springs can get back? Does that bullpen have the pieces to stabilize itself?
Yeah, there's no question. And you can even throw in there Phil Maton. He's been outstanding, the last, month. I mean, his last, 10, 12, 14 outings, he has given up nothing. He got off to a rough start, too. But he's been outstanding. Sean Armstrong. Clevenger, the only time I've seen that guy get himself into trouble is when he gets himself into trouble. You're not going to put together 2, 3, 4 hits against him. Now, he may walk a couple of guys and you get a hit and score a run or two. That's about the only way that you're going to get to him. When he is in and around the strike zone, he is just a nightmare for hitters. And then, Jason Adam has been their most consistent reliever. And then Pete Fairbanks, back from the nerve issue that he had. And I will tell you this, his last 2 outings were against Boston, and that was as good as I've seen him since early last year. I mean, complete and utter dominance. Just fastball, slider, in the zone, in good areas, and just wipe out type stuff. So he's been he has been really fun to watch. And like I said, over the last 3-4 weeks, this bullpen has really shifted gears and gotten back to being as dominant as everybody thought they would be.
Whenever I look at your lineup, Paredes is hitting 305. I think he's got 8 homers and 20-ish RBIs. Why is he so good, B.A.?
Because he's so consistent in his approach. It's really interesting with Paredes, and I'm not sure how many home runs he has now in his career, 60, 61, whatever. Doesn't matter. Every single one of them has been to left field. Every single one of them. He has an approach that I've never seen before. He has an open stance, but he's right up on the plate. Like the back corner of the batter's box that's closest to the plate is where his right leg is. And he starts open, and as that pitcher starts to deliver the ball to the plate, he does a great job of closing, and he has unbelievable plate coverage to the point that he's had a number, like 3 or 4 home runs this year, to left field on pitches that are on the black of the plate away. So he has excellent plate coverage, and, he's done a really good job, hitting lefties, of course, but he's done a really good job hitting righties. I think going into the game last night, he was hitting just over 300 against both lefties and righties. And what he's done against right-handers that has really helped him is he has limited his chases of breaking balls off the plate. Like, you can just tell that he has such a good feel for where the outside corner is. And if he reads breaking ball in the middle of the plate, he takes it because he knows that it's going to sweep off the plate. And he's done a really good job of that, and he's forced the pitcher to try to put him away with the breaking ball that he keeps on the plate, and those are the ones that Paredes jumps all over. So that's where he's had his success against righties, if he's not chasing breaking balls that are off the plate away. And then he's forcing them back on the plate in the 2-2, 3-2 count, and he's hammered. And he's not missed very often. I think, he went 0 for the first 2 games of the year, and from game 3 on, he has been the most consistent hitter for the Rays, without question.
Yeah, he's got one of the best at pulling the ball in the air. That's it could be an oversimplification sometimes, but he's real good at it. He's got a couple of those wall scrapers there in Tampa. A quick one for you before we let you go here, Brian. Yandy Diaz, you mentioned he turned it around a little bit. His splits from April to May are really stark. What's gone into that? Is that is he? Would we say he's back to being Yandy Diaz?
Yes, yeah, he's back. The timing was a little bit off. In the month of April, he was getting beat on pitches in the zone that you never saw him get beat on. Like his landing leg was getting down just a little bit too late. And so, pitches in the zone were beating him. He was fouling them off, popping them up. It just wasn't the same. He has gone back to being more on time and more in sync with his swing. And he's going back through the middle of the field again, really concentrating on doing that. Now, here recently, the extra base hits, home runs, doubles, that started to spike a little bit for him because now he's not only staying with that through the middle of the field approach, but he's been getting the ball in the air. And, you know how that's such a big deal in today's game, exit velocity and launch angle. And he's always been a hit-the-ball hard guy, but for the majority of his career, he's a hit-the-ball hard guy, and it's been on the ground. Now, you saw a little bit last year, him getting the ball in the air, taking some chances to try to drive a pitch when it accounts in his favor or when he feels comfortable with who's on the mound. And you're seeing that more here in the last couple of weeks, getting the ball in the air, and as hard as he hits it, that ball's going to carry. And so the doubles and home runs have started to come.
Quick answer with Tyler Alexander. If I were facing him, what would I look for?
Wow. You know what? He's a finesse lefty, and he uses both sides of the plate. He pitches very effectively to the glove side, and when he does, then he's got a chance to confound a lineup. But if I'm a right-handed hitter, I'm waiting for that changeup, but he'll sweep it and cut it and that fastball in. He tries to mix very well and sequence very well to try to get you uncomfortable because he's not overpowered. His fastball is going to sit at 89, 90 miles an hour, but when his command is there, it's one of those really soft 0 for 4s that you take, and you're like, how did that guy get me out 4 times? But he mixes his pitches very well, and so it would be hard to tell you what to look for, but just know that he is going to use both sides of the plate. So maybe early in a count, you think about ambushing him on a fastball that he tries to come middle in with and get him to left field. But yeah, it's all command with him. If he doesn't have command, then typically he doesn't have a very good night. When the command is on, and you can see that to the glove side. When he goes to the glove side, in on righties, away to lefties, and he's getting that pitch made consistently, he's got a chance to have a good night.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian, boys. Thank you.
Brian Anderson, Rays in-game TV analyst at Bally Sports Sun. We got to take a break. Blair and Barker will continue after the break with John Schneider. Welcome back to Blair and Barker. Blake Murphy sitting in for Jeff Blair. Kevin Barker alongside me. Happy Friday. Hope you guys are all going to have a nice long weekend here. Jays are going to play 3 at home against the Rays. Then they're going to play 3 at home, including a holiday Monday afternoon game against the White Sox. Stick with us this hour. We're going to give away some tickets to that one. We're not going to give them away. You got to get the trivia answer right to earn them, and you got to spell it correctly as well, which is always an extra challenge here. We'll talk to John Schneider, manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, momentarily here. We just talked to Brian Anderson. You were pretty spot on in the Tyler Alexander evaluation there. You know, BA didn't say it in the exact same way, but pick a part of the plate and focus in. Don't worry about that. He's got 6 pitches and he's going to pinpoint them.
Yeah, his job is to keep you off balance. My job is to combat that and not let him. Like trying to follow him around the strike zone. You just can't. I hear a lot. Buck Martinez says this all the time. Go up, look, and change up. Who can do that? Like, you know how good the reason why they throw changeups is it's hard to tell the difference between the two. How am I supposed to look for it? Like, I don't know how you do it. The only thing I would think of is you change mindset of where you want the ball to end up, which adds length and keeps good direction with your shoulders, right? So you're not pulling off the baseball. It's not so much I'm looking for the changeup that I'm just thinking I'm hitting this ball, if I'm right-handed, to right center. I'm not going to be out and around this thing and cut myself off and pull it to left field, because if I do, he'll pull the string. And that part of it I don't understand, but BA's exactly right, because he doesn't throw hard. He's going to have to get you looking in to get you out of way with something spinning, right? Either that sweeper thing he throws or the changeup. So I say you give him half to 2 strikes, and if it works out, it works out. If you chase, you're not going to have success for sure, I don't think.
Well, let's see what John Schneider, manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, thinks about it. John, good afternoon. Thanks for taking the time out. How we doing?
Good, guys. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Good. So, John, Chris Bassitt's going to start tonight. You guys had a bit of a decision to make with the rain out and the schedule juggling and things like that. Can you walk us through a little bit of why you guys decided Kikuchi against the Orioles on Wednesday, Chris Bassitt tonight against the Rays, and was there a little bit of it that, hey, it's Chris Bassitt bobblehead night?
No, not so much bobblehead night. No, I think just looking at how their lineups are, a lot of lefties in Baltimore, a lot of righties here with Tampa, and kind of just try to match up the best that we could with Chris too, especially he's so flexible, giving him a couple extra days, not getting off his routine. He's fine with that. And just like the way Yusei's throwing the ball, try to keep, the Hendersons, the Rushman's right-handed, the Santander's right-handed, Mullins, all those guys kind of just liked him better against that team. And both, kind of on an extra day of rest. So that's kind of how it shook out.
John, you being a former catcher, is there something knowing that a guy's had 8 days between starts that you could do behind the plate, set up bigger? Is there something that you could help him along at least early in the game to get him in the flow?
I think you got to see how Chris is going, really. I mean, he's such a veteran and kind of a pro. He appreciates the extra days, but at the same time, I think General does a good job. Kirky as well of kind of harnessing their stuff based on what they're seeing. So it's we trust Chris that he's going to be crisp and sharp and execute like he normally does. Catcher's job is, you know that he's on a few extra days rest, probably got a little bit of extra giddy up on his heater and things like that, and how to kind of command that as the game goes.
So 8 days is obviously a little on the extreme end, but all these off days you guys have had, scheduled and unscheduled, there are a couple starters here who've gotten some extra rest. And when you guys look ahead to the next month where there's barely an off day, how valuable do you expect that to be? The fact that these guys did get an extra day or 2, even 3 here and there.
Yeah, I mean, I think with any rotation, especially ours, we ask a lot of our rotation, and they've answered the bell for a long time now. And the more off days you can get them, I think the fresher they are, the deeper they get to go into games. You know what I mean? When they're on extra rest, I think it's easy to kind of bump their pitch count up a little bit and trust that they're going to navigate some spots later in the game too. And I think any pitcher at this stage of their career, really, or they're always going to be appreciative of the extra days. And as long as everyone keeps performing the way they are, we're going to be in every game for the most part. So it's been nice that they do get the extra days, and hopefully it shows up in their performance.
John, Manoah's pitching this weekend. Is there something in his last start that would tell you that he'll be predictable and you'll know what you're going to get from him in his next start?
Yeah, I think just you look at the way he pitched against Minnesota, tough lineup, obviously. And, he was just in the zone. I've been saying it for weeks, with Alec. When he's in the zone, he's going to get outs. And his only real kryptonite has been, the base on balls, hit by pitches, whatever it may be. Those things happen. But when he really limits it and allows his stuff to play in the zone, he's going to be pretty damn good. So I think whatever it was, 78 pitches through 7 innings, his last outing. That's really good for him, especially. So I just love the way he was attacking. I love what I've been saying for a while now, his stuff is the best I've seen in a while for him, going back a couple years. So I think just getting it in the zone consistently is what you saw against Minnesota, and confident that he's going to continue to do that.
Had you guys given any consideration with the extra off days and the rotation juggling to bumping him a day to the White Sox, because of the righty-lefty balance that you mentioned, that you thought of with Bassitt and Kikuchi, or was that getting too cute at that point?
Yeah, I think at that point, getting a little bit too cute. I think with the off day yesterday and with the rain out in Baltimore, it made perfect sense to get Yusei in there. He was still on an extra day of rest. And then it allows Kev to get one, and Alec to get one too. So I don't think looking that far ahead was kind of our plan. Again, if it hadn't rained, it would have been Chris in Baltimore. So it's we like the way it lined up, though, for sure, over this weekend.
Not to give me trade secrets, but is there a plan that you guys have come up with to keep Jimmy Garcia looking like this? John, that's electric stuff, man. Like, that is almost no chance stuff. Is there something you guys have come up with that can sort of keep him where he's at now?
Not giving away secrets. I'll let Pete answer that one. Jimmy is it's such a luxury to have, because you could put him in anywhere. I mean, coming in second and third, nobody out, and getting out of it, and then going back out for another inning. I mean, that's a tough ask. He's just been so damn good. It's he's just sticking to his routine. You know what I mean? It's a big dude who throws hard, and he's coming at you with 4 pitches, which is really, really hard to do as a reliever. I think what's really been great for him is his fastball execution, whether it's a sinker in on righties or at the top with his 4-seamer. Sweeper has been a really good pitch for him. That's been new this year. And then the changeup against lefties. He's confident to kind of throw any pitch at any spot, really. And I think that he's just really honed in on his pitches versus certain guys, and his stuff speaks for itself. But knock on wood, hopefully we can keep him right where he's at, because he's up there with best in the league right now.
That spot the other day where you come out and there's 2 outs, you go to Meza. He's throwing 17 pitches, and those are all high-intensity pitches. Tough to take him out of that spot, both because of how well he's pitching and just the intensity when you go out there to take the ball from him.
Yeah, I mean, he's tough dude to take out no matter what. I think looking at it where, you're looking at, he's coming off of a little bit of a back thing, and you don't want to, 2 innings is tough to get the job done like he did and then go back out. And then I just didn't want to roll into, 25, 27, 28 pitch outing and have him be down for a couple days. You knew it was going to be, him versus a lefty there, or it was going to be Timmy versus a probable pinch hitter. But I think, more so it was, looking and understanding what he had gotten out of already, even after the leadoff Q-shot double from Santander in his second inning. But just, those high leverage pitches add up. And at that point, you got to trust everyone in your bullpen before you try to get it to the closer.
I know the bullpen's pretty well rested because of the couple of off days this week, but do you anticipate having some reinforcements back soon? I know Bowden looked really good on Tuesday, and I know Chad and Yariel had been progressing.
Yeah, they're getting close. I think Chad will actually be in a AAA game on Sunday, and probably Yariel on Tuesday, and Bowden's scheduled for another one here on Sunday, I believe, as well too. So they're getting there. They're getting close, and hopefully they continue to progress in the right direction, and they're all going to be welcome additions whenever they're ready to come back.
John, did you see anything with your offense against the best team in the American League that would tell you they're about to take off?
Kev, I mean, you face Corbin Burns and Kyle Bradish, who arguably have, some of the best stuff in not only the division, but I think the league. I think what we did against Burns, I think we struck out twice, which was really encouraging. Couldn't really kind of get the big hit. It's a tough ask against a really good pitcher. And then you get Bradish out after 4 innings. Yeah, I do. I like the overall approach. It's kind of been the same thing where we've been missing that big hit. You know, Schneider up there with the bases loaded, lines out on a 3-2 pitch. We need to have those add-on runs, I believe. And in conversations with the hitters and with the hitting guys, you know, we want to just really focus on making sure these guys are taking good aggressive swings before you get to 2 strikes. Now, easier said than done. But I think that's what we're really focused on right now. With that, it's not only you're going to find yourself, you know, getting a good pitch to hit, you know, which I think we've done a really good job of over the course of the year, but it's just what you're doing when you're swinging. That's where the focus has kind of shifted a little bit. And if you can, you know, Tampa's a little bit different with how they deploy, but if you can get the starter worn down, and then get that big hit and get some insurance runs or add-on runs, you're going to be in a good spot. So it's, I think Vladdy's swinging it the way he is, Bo's swinging it the way he is right now, Jano, Schneider, even Varsh kind of turning the corner a little bit. It's been really encouraging, and we just got to do it consistently. You know, it's really, it comes down to what we're doing with pitches we're swinging at, even more so than the pitches we are swinging at. I think that we've been talking about that for a couple of years now, and we've kind of conquered that point to say, yeah, we're swinging at good pitches. We got to do a little bit more with what we're getting.
John, whenever you have a lineup that has challenges hitting the long ball, is there anything you as the manager can do to force the envelope a little?
Yeah. I mean, I think certain situations do pop up, whether it's a bunt, hit and run, safety, trying to steal some bases, things like that. These are conversations we have a lot. You know what I mean? You want to say, okay, this is gonna turn, and guys that are gonna, you know, that have hit home runs before are going to, and we definitely need that to happen. And in the meantime, you know, it's my job, our job as a staff to see how can we help support that, you know, in our work and our prep, but also how can you force some things when the situation does pop up in a game. So those are things we talk about. Again, you're trying not to ask people to do something they're not good at. But at the same time, we talk about it as a group to where until we really get rolling and we're hitting some 2-3 run homers pretty consistently, you got to make some other things happen.
Yeah. John, the lineup came out while we were talking to you here. It's Springer, Bo, Vlad at the top 1, 2, 3. Bo hasn't hit second this year, so he's back toward the top of the lineup here. I take it as a vote of confidence that this, I think 10 hits in the last 6 games is that's a real turnaround for him.
Yeah, man. I've been saying this for a while. It's a matter of time till Bo hits. It's about as proven a track record as you can get since he's been in the big leagues. And he's hitting the ball as hard as he ever has in his career in this month. And I think that, you know, getting him there, keeping Vladdy 3 where he seems to be pretty comfortable is a good time to do it. So, again, the confidence has never wavered in Bo, whether it's himself or me or anyone in this building with him and with a bat in his hands. I think when we did move him, it was to kind of give him a little bit of a blow and get back on track, which he's done. So yeah, that's trying to get him up. Bo can hit. Bo has the ability to hit really good pitchers too, and those are the guys you see at the end of the game. And right now, you want him up there.
Justin Turner got off to a terrific start. What are you seeing now from him, John?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think a really, really good start, and I think right now he's just getting, you know, he's getting pitched tough inside a little bit. And he's probably, you can ask him probably, but I think he's not getting as good of swings off as he did earlier in the year. But, you know, again, talk about track record, you know, he's going to be just fine, I think, and understands his swing better than anybody else. So part of it is the way he's being pitched. Again, he's 39. We've asked a lot of him in the first month and a half, whether it's DH and playing defense, things like that. You still got to pick and choose your spots to get him off his feet and make sure he's good to go. But all the confidence in the world that, you know, JT is going to have quality at bats every single night.
Knock on wood here, but is he and are all of you guys kind of behind what was going around the clubhouse the last week or two?
Getting there, you know, between myself, him, George, a couple pitchers. Yeah, we're getting there. I think the off day was good. We're definitely turning the corner, and you know, hopefully everyone's kids aren't bringing these germs into the clubhouse as it seems like it has been for the last year or so. But yeah, for the most part, everyone's feeling better. Still working on my voice a little bit here, but it's been a rough couple of days for everybody.
John, where do you think Dalton Varsho has improved the most in his game?
understanding where he hits the ball hard and sticking with it, really. You know, he verbalized it. I think it was his bat against Aiken where he's sitting on pitches now. He's sitting on some soft stuff from lefties, and he's trying to get the ball in the air pull side. You know, I think when Dalton does that, I know you've talked about that at length with him or about him. He understands that, you know. So I think having an understanding of where in the zone he can do that and then deliberately trying to do that. Again, I think he's made great strides, and there's still room for improvement with him. But man, he's been, if he can kind of continue to roll or get rolling the way he kind of was a couple weeks ago, I mean, it makes our lineup that much better. What he does defensively obviously speaks for itself. I can't believe that dude does not have a Gold Glove yet. But it's I think Dalton just understanding where he can hit the ball the hardest and what he's again. It kind of goes with our whole lineup is what are you going to do with those pitches when you do get them, and understanding what makes you good and dangerous.
Yeah. All right. John Schneider, manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. Thank you so much for taking the time out this afternoon.
Great job, buddy.
You bet, guys. Appreciate
Good luck.
it.
See
Thanks,
ya.
Kev.
See you, buddy.
See you.
John Schneider, manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. Yeah, Bo Bichette back up in the 2 spots. Springer, Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at the top of the order. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think Bo's their best hitter all around, right? It's if anybody was going to take Springer's spot, it would have been Bo Bichette. Like I think that's where they're at. And you know, again, you're gonna die on this hill with who you're having in the leadoff spot and how you're trying to get those 3 or 4 guys all hot at the same time. I just wonder about the home runs. I mean, I know what John said there, and John's supposed to say that because John's the manager, and I just who does he think's going to hit homers? Look. He would never say that, and I would never ask. It's not fair for me to even say that. So you know, because he'd get mad at me anyway and yell at me. But I wondered that part of it. For them to go on a streak like a Philadelphia Phillies 12-game winning streak. Don't you have to hit homers? Like,
you
don't you have
so?
to? Yeah. Don't like it's just you're going to run into good pitching. Like you're going to run into pitching that just don't give up hits.
Well, look at the Orioles game the other day that they walked off, right? They hit a solo home run to lead off the game, and then a walk-off home run to end it, and they got nothing in between.
Yeah. It's that kind of thing, right? It's just your pitching keeps you in it long enough for you to run into one. And that's the part of it I just is it lack of talent, or is it a mindset? Is it confidence? Is it, what they're trying to sell to the players? Is it the information that's being given them is not good enough? Like, I think that's the part they need to figure out. If they can figure that part out, then maybe they can go on a decent run here. Again, I still say this. They're at the part of their schedule where they can go get above 500. You get above 500, it's confidence building. Like, any sport is made of confidence. You have to have confidence in your craft to do well at it. And it just seems like they're not oozing that, right? Nobody's in a hurry or running to the plate to take their swings unless David Schneider. He's always that way. But most of them are not, right? They're dragging their bat up there. At least it looks that way, right? And they're more grinding mentally than they are just thinking about, there's the ball. I want to crush that thing. When they need to try and get back to more about that. So I just think that part of it, I know John and John's good at sort of selling that part of it to the public. I just wonder how that part of it's going to get better, and can it get better? And that, I think, is the question the organization has to figure out.
And it's look, this run is a bunch of teams that don't hit particularly well. After this Rays series, it's a bunch of teams that are below 500 to well below 500. But all of those teams struggled much more on the offensive side than the defensive side. So it could be a good run for your pitchers, not necessarily for your hitters. You're also going to see a Pittsburgh team, by the way. I hope we get to see Paul Skenes.
Oh, me too.
He has just gone, so he's pitching right now.
Yeah. 3
innings, nobody on base, 7 Ks. The first 9 swings of the game were all swing and miss.
That's awesome. I mean, it is. You're hoping he's not waiting for the shoe to drop, right? He throws so hard that just how's the body consistently taking that? Maybe he's thrown so hard for so long, the body's used to it, right? It's like playing every day. It's like, why would you give me load management when I play every day? Like, my body's just used to it. So maybe he's one of those guys. Maybe he's a unicorn when it comes to, he throws so hard and so consistent. And, I haven't really dug into mechanically if he's good enough, sound enough to be able to finish the same and it's free and easy or not. But, it's must watch. Like, if you're, even if you're a Pittsburgh fan, if it's like Paul Skenes' day. Like, every time he pitches.
He pitched against Alek Manoah in Manoah's last AAA start.
Yeah.
And it was phenomenal. Like, awesome. I don't know how Nathan Lucas got 3 hits off of him, but that was it. It was the first time all year a team had gotten 2 consecutive hits off of him in that game. Yeah. That's how good this guy is. His slowest fastball so far today is 98.2.
That's awesome. What's the hardest, does it say?
101.2.
That's awesome. Yeah. You know, again, it's just, can you pitch at 100? I mean, that'd be the kind of cool thing, right? You don't see a ton of that. DeGrom used to do that, and he's been hurt forever, right? It's that guy that can pitch, can locate 100, and both sides of the plate. Guy has a weakness down and away, you throw 100 down and away. If you don't like the ball up, you throw the ball 100 up. So it's just, again, it's nice to see Pittsburgh good or better, right? You actually got something to look forward to if you're a Pittsburgh Pirates fan and a baseball fan, that you would actually be flipping the channel. Oh, look, it's Pittsburgh. I'm stopping and not continuing to push the remote. So, yeah, good for them, good for him, and hopefully he has a long career and we get to watch that forever.
Yeah, hopefully we get to see it in a couple of weeks. And that series is here, so you could maybe see him in person, but also, you know, next year, every second year or whatever. Pittsburgh's a great place to go see a ball game, too. And drivable for me. Yeah, I have. I've been there a couple of times.
It's beautiful. I took batting, but I didn't play there a lot. I took batting practice there when I was on teams that went there. I used to try to hit the ball in the water all the time, which is kind of cool, right? We'd make bets where if you hit a ball in the water, you had to fix the other guy, you know, a hamburger or whatever. You know, it's not so much about money in the big leagues. It's more about, you know, the forcing them to do things they don't want to do. So it was more fun. That's a beautiful park. It might be the nicest park in baseball.
Yeah, it's up there. I've done 24, and I would say it's right up there.
I like the Rockies. I think the Rockies in the summertime, and you know, you can see the mountains from home plate. Like, it's just a really, really cool place. I like that place too.
San Fran's up there for me too. You're looking out at the bay.
I think it's the surroundings of the park that's not always the nicest of places. So I think that is what you need to try and overcome. But yeah, the park and the wind and it's cold there a lot of the times too, which is hard to overcome.
Great beer selection though.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, it is a beautiful park. I mean, I'll give you that. But it's there's a lot of nice parks. Like it's. Yeah. You know, there's the Yankees Stadium's pretty nice. So yeah, I like going to Boston too. I like going to Milwaukee. Milwaukee's nice. There's a lot of nice stadiums,
including the Rogers Center, where we want to send you.
Absolutely.
All right, we're giving you the chance to win Blue Jays tickets all season long here on Blair and Barker. All you have to do is text the correct answer to our daily baseball trivia question to 590-590. Yesterday's question was, longtime Rays ace David Price was dealt to the Blue Jays from the Tigers during the 2015 season. Which team did Price make his Jays debut against, striking out 11 batters? The answer to that on August 3rd, 2015 was the Minnesota Twins. I didn't remember it was the Twins. I was at that game, though. Today's question, to win tickets for Jays White Sox on Monday, which is a 3 p.m. start on the holiday Monday, and Tuesday. We're also giving away tickets for Tuesday, May 21st. So text the answer to this question to 590-590. This 2-time World Series champion manager got his start in the White Sox organization, where he famously managed Michael Jordan in the minor leagues. Name him. Big hint, last time I was on the show with you, we talked to someone who had just done a podcast with the answer to this and talked about this story a little bit. So again, which 2-time World Series champion manager managed Michael Jordan in the minor leagues? Text that answer to 590-590. Your chance to win tickets for Monday's game and Tuesday's game. All right, Kevin, let's take a break. We got Jesse Rogers at ESPN on the other side. We'll talk a little bit about that load management piece he wrote. Yep. We'll also take a couple more calls to the back leg line, 416-413-3959. Send those calls in as Blair and Barker continues. Sportsnet Radio Network and Sportsnet 360. Welcome back to Blair and Barker. Blake Murphy sitting in for Jeff Blair for the day. Kevin Barker alongside me. What's the deal? Jeff Blair builds a 4-day weekend here? What's going on?
Yeah. It's load management.
Unbelievable.
How about that?
Good tie-in. We're going to talk to Jesse Rogers of ESPN, national MLB reporter, in a few minutes here. He had a piece up at ESPN talking about how baseball is getting into their own load management era, for lack of a better term. Basketball's been there. Soccer's been there. We're talking about wearable technology, big graphs with the darker the red, the more in the red zone you are, the more at risk you are. Kevin, I know you're not a big fan of this stuff. You think guys should be in there every day as long as they're healthy enough to be in there every day.
Yeah, that just sounds like giving a player an excuse to not play as much. That's what it feels like, right? It's like the basketball thing you were talking about, right? That's why they had to make a rule to where you have to play more. Like, It just seems to me like they're going to somehow figure out a way to take advantage of that. And why would you even want to give them the advantage or the thought process of even trying to do that? It just doesn't make – I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe they've been doing this for a while. It sounds like, a lot of organizations are trying to keep certain players on the field. And you can understand certain players that have trouble staying on the field, and you would sort of figure out a way to schedule out how many days they're going to play in a row, and they don't play a day game after night, whatever the approach is. But everybody, I just don't understand that. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You pay me to play. I want to play. That's all. It's up to me to figure it out. If I can't play, then don't pay me as much.
Yeah, I'd want to play every day, too.
Yeah.
I mean, not only to win and to get in there, and you probably feel better hitting every day, but your numbers. That's your next contract,
Well, you
too,
work
right?
half a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you're building houses here. You're playing baseball. Maybe, again, I'm overthinking this and think too highly of the athletes that play baseball, and it is an actual tool for you to sit down and think about how to get through an entire season without getting hurt. I used to do it. Figure out ways I could, take a little off after a game. Don't hit as much to keep me on the field. Give me a better chance of going where I want to go. So, I just don't sometimes understand it.
Well, Jesse Rogers, national MLB reporter at ESPN, wrote the piece. Let's see what he thinks about it. But first, he is joining us from, I believe, at the Pirates-Cubs game where Paul Skenes has been perfect through 4 and has 9 strikeouts. How's it going down there, Jesse?
Yeah, it's amazing to see him in person. I mean, he's just firing fastballs by Cub hitters, but of course, adding on a 90-mile-an-hour, off-speed change and sliders. I mean, everything is elevated in terms of velocity, off-speed included. It's been amazing to watch. Struck out the first 7 batters. That's tied for a rookie record with Jacob deGrom. 12 up, 12 down. He comes as advertised. I mean, first career road start, no nerves at all. Wrigley Field, day game, the only game in Major League Baseball. And here he is mowing guys down up to 9 strikeouts through 4.
Jesse, it's almost like he's been there before, right? It's just like it's a habit for him. He's playing catch with the catcher. That's sort of what it seems like when you watch him from afar. Is that what it looks like up close?
It does. What it looks like to me is a guy that just knows he has a supreme skill set, and as long as he doesn't get in his own way, get in his own head early on in his career, if he just goes out and plays, I'm sure that's what the Pirates are telling him. Let your skills take over. Don't think too much. Just go play. The great ones can do that, right? The rest of us have to think about things. I think you're kind of right. He's so good that there's no reason to change anything. Just be yourself, and you're going to get a lot of guys out, and he's doing it.
It seems unfair that he throws 5 different pitches on top of throwing. He's averaging 99.7 on his fastball today. He's throwing it in the zone 3/4 of the time. And, oh, by the way, he's got 3 breaking balls on an off speed.
Yeah, I don't know. The Cubs faced him last week, so usually that's an advantage for the hitters. And they got to him a little bit. Now, that was his first career start, so I'm not sure what the difference is between today and last time. It's supposed to be a little bit easier for the hitter, but it's been more difficult. So it'll be interesting to hear both sides after the game. Remember, this is the field that Kerry Wood once struck out 20 to tie the record. I don't know if Skenes will stay in the game long enough to do that. But look, I mean that number's in jeopardy at some point in this guy's career if he stays healthy.
Before we move on, Jesse, do you think the Pirates have a game plan for him? Hard thrower, throws that many pitches. I mean, you don't want to close your eyes and see him getting hurt, but you can close your eyes and see him getting hurt. You think they got a plan for him?
Yeah. I mean, speaking of load management, right? I wrote about position players because with pitchers, everybody knows the deal. Like, we're going to limit innings, we're going to limit appearances, outings. There's a whole industry dedicated to load management for pitchers, so you better believe they have a plan for him. I haven't really dove into that plan, but obviously he could have made the team out of spring training. He didn't. So they're just going to slow play it. It's not like this is the year for the Pirates, right, necessarily. So they need to keep him healthy as long as they can, and I think this first year they'll be especially careful.
Him and Jared Jones, another electric young arm that they are surely going to keep some bubble wrap on as much as they can. So we alluded to it before we brought you on here. You kind of just alluded to it. You had this piece at ESPN up earlier this week called How Load Management is Becoming MLB's Next Big Thing. It's more on the position player side. We've always talked about how to kind of keep pitchers as healthy as possible. And we're failing dramatically with regards to that. But this story is about how teams are trying to get, ahead of the curve, keeping position players healthy. It's getting technical. It's getting graphy. Can you give us I read the piece, but for the listeners who haven't got a chance yet, give us the high level of what Major League Baseball teams are trying to do to keep their position player guys healthier.
Yeah, let me start with this because I've done a lot of interviews about this article, and I heard you guys before I came on. I didn't realize, and my editors didn't realize, the phrase load management was so triggering for people. And I get it because we associate it with the NBA and taking days off. That's really not what this is about. It's almost the literal meaning of load management, managing your load, and I heard you say it, before and after games, as Matt Arnold said, my last quote there, to keep players on the field. Now, maybe there's a time in the future, part 2 or 3 of this story, where they decide, no, stars need 1 day off a week. Maybe we will get there. We're not there yet. Right now, it's really about reducing workloads before and after games, especially for the guys that play every day. What got me to write the story was really just understanding and talking to people about how much they track. And they track every single movement. You go to your left, you go to your right, you take off from first base on a full count. You run down 5 balls in right center field. You steal 3 bases, or conversely, you do nothing for 5 days because you're striking out and you're not moving around on defense. It's all charted, and I was able to see a couple of these color-coded graphs. Nothing crazy. It's not like you'd look at it and you would understand it right away. If you're in the white or yellow, you haven't moved around a lot. If you're in the red, like Alex Bregman is, you might live in the red zone. That means it's showing fatigue. And most of the time for the star player, it doesn't mean a day off necessarily. It could if there's a dip in production. It usually means backing off the workload. And everyone's different. Talking to Xander Bogaerts, he's like, the first thing I eliminate is BP, but I will take ground balls. Swanson was kind of the opposite, for example. And Dansby Swanson told me he completely changed his routine after being at Wrigley Field for a year because they play so many day games. So the charting of the movements helps, but it's not the end-all be-all. It's the player along with the numbers behind it. And last thing is, there might be a point where you try to get ahead of fatigue and say, there's an old school trainer that used to be with La Russa that would say, give them a day off before they need it. I don't know if you can convince a star you need a day off before he needs it. It usually takes a dip in production. So all these things I think help, but I still think when it comes to the stars, the players are going to have the strongest voice in the room.
Jesse, whenever I listened to you talk and I read your article, I was thinking about everything that he's writing here. I learned in the minor leagues. Like I learned how to sort of back off and I played a lot in the minor leagues, so I got a lot of time to try and figure all this out. But it was just I don't understand. I think the part where organizations at the big league level have to explain these things to players. Are they, or am I overthinking it?
No, I know you there is something to that. Now you played, I didn't, and is there a scenario where your bat speed is slowed up? You're moving around a little bit slower and you don't even realize it? I don't know. That's the question. I think they can bring these charts to these guys and it might explain a dip in production or slowing down your sprint speed or something. I think that's the thing. Like maybe a player doesn't realize that he's fatigued a little bit, although I think most of the time you do. So I think it's just something to help them, not determine a course of action. Mike Schultz told me he might go to a guy if he's in the red zone for weeks on end and be like, hey, do you want a DH today, just to get you off your feet a little bit? Again, it is a lot of it tied to common sense, and that's why I don't think this is really groundbreaking necessarily. I just find it interesting that they can track everything and it can show up in a color-coded chart the next day to explain maybe what's going on with a player.
It strikes me, Jesse, and I have the experience on the basketball side, not being a former player like Kevin, but that the most important part, as I'm reading your thing, what I'm thinking in my head is like, man, if you just like came to a player and took this and were like, here is the sheet, this is what we got to do, that would be a tough sell. Whereas if a player is just, feeling not 100%, there is, like you said, a dip in performance or something like that, and they know this is there to come and ask them, how, like, is how you communicate this to players and how you make it available to them. Like the information itself, the tracking itself probably isn't all that valuable because all 30 teams can look at what their guys did, how many plate appearances, how many catches. It's that ability to kind of communicate it and help the player find it useful. That is what could make this actually valuable to teams.
Yeah, I think you kind of said in there somewhere. I think when there's a gray area, like it's obvious when a guy is not hitting for 3 weeks, right? Something's going on. Maybe fatigue is part of it. It's some things are obvious, and then there's that gray area. And I think you're right. You bring it to the player, but you're so right about the communication too. I mentioned to Bogarts, I'm like, because I'm a reporter. I'm just like black and white. Like, hey, does Schilt come to you and say, you're in the red zone, you need a day off? He laughed. He's like, no. It doesn't work like that. We talk. I talk to the strength and conditioning coaches. Maybe he'll come suggest a DH day. But it is about how you communicate things. And it's usually the manager who has that delicate touch, especially with the star players. Because, look, star players that play every day, year in and year out, all of a sudden if there's a different production, everybody wants to know why, and maybe it's related to some fatigue. So, but again, none of it trumps what a player is saying unless he's just completely fooling himself, right? And I think organizations know when that happens as well. So it's just another tool, and I think it's used best when you're in a gray area and you're looking for answers.
Jesse, none of what you've learned would tell you that an organization is using this tool to determine on how they're going to pay a player. Is that right? One way or the other?
No, not really. I think they use it just for training purposes almost, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the opposite is true, too. When that color grid comes out, you're playing every day, and that grid comes out and your role player is in the white. He hasn't moved at all. Derek Shelton pulled me aside yesterday and was talking to me about this as well. Like, we make sure those guys every 3 days are running around when we see the sheet. They haven't gotten into a game. We got in late. We didn't do batting practice. We make sure our backups are doing them a lot, just as we might pull back on our regular guys. Let me tell you the other thing, and I just mentioned Derek Shelton, Mike Schilt. It was amazing, and this is another reason I wrote it. And it should be part one of a series, to be honest. The passion the managers had in talking to me, whether I put their quotes in the story or not. I mean, literally, Derek Shelton, who I didn't quote, pulled me aside yesterday, and he's like, I'm glad you're at the ballpark. I have a lot of thoughts on this. And, you saw the quote by David Bell. He's like, in my second career as manager, I really dove into this. Mike Schilt, I was in his office for half an hour about this. This is the other thing I want to get across. It's what teams and manager talking about behind the scenes, because I think they feel strongly that fatigue plays a part in dips in production. Travel is maybe a little different now than in the past. The Sunday night game, then you're playing on Monday somewhere. All these things play a part. I will just tell you that managers have a lot of strong feelings and a lot of passion about this subject. So I found that interesting as well.
Awesome.
Jesse, really appreciated the piece. Paul Skenes is back on the mound, so we should probably let you go and get on with your Friday and this incredible, not debut, second game for Paul Skenes.
Have fun, Jesse.
First career road start, perfect game. What's to watch, right? Okay.
Jesse Rogers.
See you guys.
See ya.
Jesse Rogers, national MLB reporter at ESPN. Yeah, Skenes is back out there. He's through 4 1/3 now. He's even getting the called strikes a little off the plate now, it looks like, too. So if it wasn't hard enough, Kevin.
Yeah, look, that's sort of, you'd like to think that the umpire wouldn't get called up in the moment. I can tell you that happens a lot. So, hopefully they keep it in the zone and force him to go out there and make pitches.
All right, we've got a couple calls in the call line for you, the back leg bits, because it is Friday, and that's what we do here. You ready for a couple in the week?
Absolutely. Can't
All
wait.
right. First, we've got Elaine in Vancouver. What does Elaine have for Kevin Barker?
Kevin, what's the fastest speed that a pitcher threw to you that you successfully were able to hit? I was just wondering if the speed was slower in, quote, your day. Thanks.
Well, Kevin Brown was the hardest thrower, most movement guy that I'd ever faced. I think when I played, it was far and few between the guys that consistently would throw upper 90s. it would be, I think that was whenever, at least when I went to it bat, it was how hard's he throw, what's he throw with 2 strikes. That was all I wanted to know is how hard's he throwing, what's he throw with 2 strikes. Simplify it that much. Now you sort of know how hard he's throwing. Like mostly everybody you're facing is, upper 90s and can pitch at that and tunnel the secondary stuff off of that. So Kevin Brown was the hardest guy, the most movement guy that I'd ever faced. But it was far and few between, right? Most guys were sitting in those low 90s instead of the high 90s. And, you could let it travel then. I'm not so sure now that you consistently can go up to the plate and have a hitting coach tell you, let it travel. Let it travel and let it get deep. You let it get deep, you're out. So, I think that's a very good question. But I think it's just the consistency of how much you didn't see velocity when I played.
I guess then, too, if you saw a guy who was a monster velocity mix, if you were seeing 93, 94, and then 100, it's maybe a little different than if you're seeing 98 most days. And then, like Paul Skenes is throwing 101. That's crazy. But if you're already seeing 98 from guys most days, maybe the jump isn't as significant.
Yeah, and a lot of the times now, even though guys throw that hard, they throw a lot more sliders. They'll throw a lot more breaking balls. They throw a lot of changeups. Like they throw a lot of secondary stuff, plus the velocity. Like it's not going, and they're not predictable with the velocity, right? So you're in between on what you're supposed to look for. That's why hitting has never been tougher, is because they are almost pitching backwards. And when you pitch backwards and you got velocities that they got now, that's why you see batting averages, 230-something.
Yeah, it's the lowest it's been since the dead ball era.
Yeah,
I think is something I saw today.
That's a great question.
OPS league-wide down under 700 right
Good
now.
Luck. Good luck.
Yeah, and it's got to be tough as a hitter to figure out. Fastballs have never been harder and never had more life, but usage on them is down because breaking balls are also so nasty.
Because that's hard to hit, too.
Yeah. It's a tough one. I don't envy these guys. Billy in Toronto also has a question for us on the back leg line.
What is Joey Votto doing? Like, I have heard not one peep out of it. Like, has he decided not to come back, or is he still working in Dunedin and going for a swing or whatever? But I'm sure that they could probably use him up here by now, but I really don't know what's going on. So if you could answer that, I would appreciate it. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
You have any idea?
I know what the latest update we got was.
What is it?
It's basically that he doesn't want to get back into games until he's 100%. So he's been swinging, he's been doing some fielding, he's been doing some running, but he hasn't faced live action yet, and he's not going to do that until he's 1,000%.
Yeah, I don't have much to add on that. Like, I saw him in spring training. He looked fine to me. Optically, he looked like he was raring and ready to go. I asked him how he's feeling. He said, I'm feeling good. And then the next thing you know, he just disappeared. And then I heard he was taking ground balls, which they were all excited about that. He was throwing long toss in the outfield. They were excited about that, but he wasn't hitting.
Yeah, so I know he's at least been hitting off a tee because he's posted videos of it, and the team's told us he's been doing fielding stuff and things like that. He's been watching games and tweeting about them. Come on with us, man. If you just want to talk ball, if that's what you're doing in your downtime.
I wonder when it will be enough.
Yeah.
He's had a long career. He's done pretty well for himself. When is just enough? Like, just going and taking batting practice and trying to get healthy again. This is just me. I know if I'd had a career like he's gotten and had enough money that I could do backstrokes in it, I'm probably not going to go to Dunedin in a field 7 and try and take ground balls. That's just me. I'd try and do something else and have a little bit more fun, do some traveling, and I could tweet about the Jays from Europe. That's just me, but good for Joey. If this is the way Joey wants to do it, then good for Joey.
More specific to your question, Billy, May 7th was the last time we got an update, and that was that he was making good progress on hitting and fielding. The next steps would be live at-bats and then live games, but we haven't heard an update on that. So maybe I'll ask him tomorrow when I'm down there. We've got one more to wrap our week up. It's Phil in Toronto. It's relevant to that conversation we just had with Jesse Rogers.
I am calling about load management. Cannot that be used for the coaches and the organization to be able to give some players an excuse for the team to let them have some time off, i.e. George Springer, Jerry Springer, as I like to call him nowadays. He needs some time off. He doesn't want to really do it. And then the Jays need him to be off for a little bit, and load management will give him an excuse and save face. I'm not sure what you think about that, but let us know. Let me know. Thank you.
Here's what I think about that. You want to know my answer to that?
Call your union rep if a team tries to do that?
If I paid $25 million to a guy, he'd do what I told him to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make up some excuse because he's not performing at a high enough level that I feel like I should be paying or playing him. That's me. Now, does the real world work that way? Absolutely not. Like there's a reason why he hasn't been moved down in the order. What that is beyond me, but I'm assuming it has something to do with track record, past, and how much money he's making. Now, everybody going to roll their eyes, throw their hands in the air. That's it. Like, again, remember the times that he'd been moved down in the order. They had better options. Mm-hmm. Do they have a better option right now? You could argue no. I mean, Jeff said this yesterday. We talk a lot about Davis Schneider. If I'd have told you that at the beginning of the season, you'd have been like, uh-oh.
He was a part-time player on paper.
Yeah. A year and a half ago, you wouldn't have known Davis if you fell on him. Like, no offense. That's just the way it is. That's the point, I think. And I just get back to that thing. And when you start paying a guy a bunch of money, he should be doing what you tell him to do.
The most interesting part of the load management thing for me as it pertains to George Springer is he played 154 games last year. They actually kept him healthy for the first time since like his second year in the league.
Yeah.
So they did something right. It's just they didn't, that's not coinciding with the performance that's staying where it needs to be. So it's not a health and availability thing for Springer. And you can't get too to Phil's question. I know it was a little tongue in cheek, but if you start trying to use that stuff, and I know you asked Jesse as well, would teams use it in contract negotiation stuff? That's when the union's going to throw their hands up and be like, no more wearable technology. Our guy's going to work out on his own. He's not going to come in. So you can't hold that stuff
as well as anybody, that new bat speed thing. You don't think they're going to use that? Like saying that, 2 years from now, his bat speed's going to go down.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not going to pay him this amount of money. They may not come out and tell everybody that, but it's a tool that's available. They're going to be able to use that. That's what I said. If you're a player, man, you're like, holy moly.
Yeah,
like,
Tristan Casas from the Red Sox kind of already came out and said, like, they've like, my people have told me if you're training for bat speed, and this would be a load management thing as well, but also just training for bat speed, you're going to get injured. You're going to see more oblique and rib injuries because, Casas is a big guy.
Yeah.
And you're a big guy. Imagine if what you were training for was that speed in that rotation.
Yeah.
You're going to get hurt.
Fast twitch muscles. How do you do that, right? How do you make your muscles twitch faster to make your bat faster? Like it's some things you're just born with. Like it's, some things you can't teach. And when you get the foot down, it just tends to go faster than other bats go. And why rock it? Why rock the boat? That's where I'm at. That's what I said. There has to be a time when just enough's enough, right?
Yeah.
They just got to stop coming out with stats. If they don't, just stop telling us about them. Like, how about that? I don't know. Maybe this is a good tool. Maybe baseball players will love it. Me, I wouldn't. I wouldn't have loved it.
At the player side, at the team side, I think there are a lot of risks. I think it's fun for someone like me to play around with, and I got 3 minutes before Blue Jay Central. Hey, look, Isaac Paredes doesn't swing hard. He's one of the lightest swingers in the league, and look at all these pulled fly ball home runs. That's a curiosity. That's entertaining for me. But if teams are starting to, you're starting to scout for and train for and acquire for bat speed, which is just one component of what you're looking for, I think that's real risky.
What's the deal in 2024 is to beat the guy to the spot. If I do it mechanically or with bat speed, why do they care?
Yeah.
Right? It's as long as I'm doing it. That's the point. Mookie Betts doesn't have the quickest bat in baseball. Look what he's doing. I told you, he's hitting like over 380 against the fastball. He's beating the dude to the spot. Like, that is just, it's like, okay, look, it's not working in batting practice, what we're working on, because this thing says the bat speed went down. Now what do? Do I start over again? And then it's going to take me longer. I'm going to stink. When I go, it's like, this is just not going to go well. I don't know. Maybe just gives me another reason to yell.
Hey, it's good. It's I enjoy it. It's entertaining. Like I said, I don't. If someone like me doesn't even have a ton of utility for it, other than like this is fun to play around with, then maybe we don't need too much more. Kevin Barker, we got a couple of seconds.
Welcome to my side.
Yeah, I'm getting there slowly, man. The more time I spend with you, the more I fill in for Jeff Blair. Thanks for having me today, man.
Thanks for coming.
This has been Blair and Barker. Jeff Blair will be back with you. The time slot moves to 4 to 6 starting Tuesday. So coming out of the long weekend, you guys will have a new time slot. there. As a reminder, tonight's game is an Apple TV Plus Friday Night Baseball exclusive. So if you're not an Apple TV Plus subscriber, you can access a 2-month free trial of Apple TV at apple.co/MLB gift. And you can Google or check Apple support for how to do all of that stuff. We'll also have the game for you on the Sportsnet radio network. I'm going to head down tomorrow. Should be a fun one. Ross Atkins talking pregame. Kevin, you have yourself a wonderful weekend, man. All right. Have a good weekend, everyone. Blair and Bark will be back with you at 4 p.m. Tuesday. I'll be back with you 10 a.m. on Monday.